Hockey Podcast.
Choose your upper.
Welcome back to the Regional Drug Podcast. My name's Jake, and with me is Evan. We're just kidding. This is the Handsome Hockey Podcast. You got us, you sneaky devils.
How could you have? What made you think we were talking about drugs?
Yeah, why would we be named the Regional Drug Podcast?
We wouldn't dare to talk about drugs. It always makes me laugh that like Dare was better at selling drugs than anything else. Like this, like it's like, oh, you know this like thing that society's at war with? Let's just give you the menu.
You guys ever heard of crack cocaine?
No.
Let me tell you about it.
That's the other thing. It's like
what? It's like fifth grade.
Right. And we hadn't heard of this shit.
I have now.
And not only that, they sort of made it look amazing.
Yeah.
Like the one thing I will give my like ridiculous health class experience one credit, and they made smokeless tobacco look awful.
Yeah.
Oh, and I think it was also like some advertising people, but they like had a good like snuff campaign. And like, okay, that was one you sold me. Never going to do that one.
Yeah, we're good. Can we go back to the part about cocaine? I want to learn more about how awful it is.
Yeah, right.
Sounds terrible.
I used to be very proud of smoking weed in my Dare shirt.
Yeah. Because you were super cool.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You know, I had a cool Dare shirt. Unfortunately, got to be, I think, too big at one point. And I don't know. I've always kind of wanted it back, like in a smaller version.
I had no shoulders well into college and weighed like 140 pounds.
Curious how you still had arms.
Yeah. They're actually attached to my ribs, and I had to have them moved when I grew shoulders.
Oh, yeah? Oh, that's dope.
They were like, Jake, I think it's time.
Modern medicine.
Just think about how much better at hockey you're going to be. Turns out not. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, you know, those
shoulders were not what's holding me back.
Those penalties that you couldn't take in soccer, now you take all the time.
Yeah. Fuck.
Handball's never a problem before because didn't have hands.
Don't ask me to throw it in, though. Ball goes out of bounds, I'm going the other way. We are actually here to talk about hockey, as silly as it may sound.
Yeah, through a circuitous route. We're just taking the scenic route.
Taking the long way there.
Vladimir Tarasenko took his long way out of town.
Yeah, it only took him like 2.5 years after requesting a trade to actually get traded.
Yeah, props to him for helping make it happen. I mean, he was a consummate professional in the whole thing. He performed, and I mean, it was one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, you perform your way out of town. Well, he did it.
Good for him.
Made it happen.
Fuck St. Louis.
And reunites him with his bestie, Artemi Panarin.
The bread man.
Yeah. They've already been baking. They, I think...
They turned them into pigs?
No, baking. Sorry. I think Artemi
We pronounce our G's on this podcast, sir.
Yeah, sorry.
Otherwise, one of us, not naming names, Jake, is going to get confused.
Yeah, I believe Artemi Panarin assisted Vlad's first goal.
I believe so as well. Yes.
Right. So served him up a nice loaf.
That sounds like a scatological reference.
It does.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm keeping it in.
Going to New York along with Tarasenko was defenseman Nico Mikola.
Which actually I don't pay a lot of attention to St. Louis because to watch them means to watch Jordan Binnington, and I can't allow myself to do that.
Really? You can't like turn on the fucking just freight train of awful express and just like hate watch Jordan Binnington?
If I need to see antics like that, I can go to a junior high.
You could turn on Tucker Carlson.
Ooh, but he has a bow tie, so it makes him professional.
Just put Jordan Bennington in a bow tie.
You'd be like, God, he looks like a respectable gentleman all of a sudden. He's like still swatting at people with his goalie stick.
He could be a senator.
Throwing water bottles at Nazem Kadri, and you're like...
why does nobody respect white men anymore?
It's like him and Jordan Peterson just shaking dongs at each other. St. Louis got Sammy Blais back.
Again, yeah.
They were like, we don't want you. Okay, just kidding.
They traded him for above market value, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and they're getting him back with zero value whatsoever because he was always injured or not performing in New York.
Right, and he's probably living it up knowing that he was heading back to St. Louis.
Yeah, they also got the cousin to our hunter-gatherer forefathers, Hunter Skinner. They also get a conditional first rounder, which I think the condition is that New York decides which one of their picks to give to their first round picks to give to St. Louis around draft time.
It's okay. I'm still over here laughing at your hunter-gatherer joke.
I was pretty.
That was very good. Impressed.
I was happy with it. They also get a 2024 fourth. I think this is a big win for St. Louis, especially if they can re-sign Tarasenko. Even if they can't, it honestly is kind of a win because you're going for it, right? You're a relative contender. You've had kind of a rocky season, but you've got a lot of talent. You add somebody of Tarasenko's caliber, which actually was in a much needed position. They're very left side heavy, so they add a right wing.
Your options were popularly speculated as Tarasenko or like the obviously injured and ineffective this year, Patrick Kane. Yeah, you made the right decision.
Patrick Kane, however, is sad, which made most other people happy.
Yeah. He said it wasn't my favorite trade in the world or something like that. It was like kind of a fun bit. And it was just kind of funny because then instantly half of hockey, like writerdom, was like, oh, he expressed an emotion. Oh, man, we got to freak out.
We got to stab him.
And it's real like, quick. No, actually.
Caesar on the hills. Stab him. Can't have that. Can't have emotions in hockey.
Right. And like what he said was like, okay, yeah, sure. That, cut off my trade destination I liked. And it was also my home state.
I might have to go to Dallas now.
Yeah.
I'm sure Tyler Seguin.
I'm sure he likes the tax benefits in Dallas, and has been attached therein by most accounts. But I don't like GMs trading for injured players. Like the Nick Foligno thing a couple of years ago was like, that's fucking stupid.
Yeah,
and I think that this is that.
I don't think he's going to get traded, honestly.
Right. And
he'll get traded by the end of this episode. I'll be like, cool, Jake.
Wow, buzz on my butt. Patrick Kane traded to our beer league team.
Anaheim. That I would take. Yeah. I would just like, what's our tactic today? Get the puck to the guy.
Yeah. That guy that does the stuff.
And
we don't care. Yeah. Like, remember that bad shit we said about him? Yeah. Forget that. Yeah. We're scoring goals now.
Yeah. Homophobia, am I right, Patrick? Anyways, that kind of brings us to the impending trade deadline, which is now like 2 weeks away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The kind of trade deadline that makes Alexander Gavrikov look like he's fucking Bobby Orr.
David Savard.
Yeah, right. David Savard 2.0.
I do like Gavrikov's game. He's very limited offensively, but he's a hell of a shutdown defender.
Yeah, he's useful. And and Dallas already has Yanni Hakanpää, my favorite. Yeah. So, like these gigantic shutdown defenders come at a premium this time of year. And I don't know, it always seems sort of laughable that GMs take these kind of big swings at players that you should not overvalue. But
what if he's the missing piece?
Sure.
What if this guy who can't score is our missing piece?
Yeah. And speaking of people that have been spending the later years of their career in trade deadline limbo, Jacob Chitrin of the Arizona Sell Everything Coyotes.
They have a business model, man. It works.
Yeah. They are open for business.
It's what can we do to get to the cap floor?
Mm-hmm.
Who can we trade this
while retaining every single draft pick in the upcoming drafts? And like, they've needed to sell him for a long time, and now he's being held out for trade-related reasons, quote unquote. So one assumes that he's going to be moved in the near future, but they never said held out pending trade. So like, trade-related reasons could just be, we're scared you're going to get injured.
Oh, that's entirely what it is. There's been a lot of rumors about LA being the trade partner there, but that seems to have cooled a little bit. Boston and Edmonton. Edmonton's linked to any defenseman with a pulse because, you know, their defense sucks.
I mean, their defense is actually, if you look at the underlying numbers, pretty good, but they just don't have a game-changing kind of talent back there. And
really, because they're paying Darnell Nurse north of $9 million a year.
I thought you said Boston, not Edmonton.
Edmonton.
Oh yeah,
I was still on Edmonton, but hey, you know what, bro? Let's go with Boston. Boston's got Charlie,
and Brandon Carlo, and
I think Charlie's a game-breaking defenseman.
I think so too. So that was what was confusing me. I apparently heard Edmonton or Boston out of Edmonton. I don't know.
They both end in ON, so TON. So. You know, I got no jokes.
No yokes.
I died right there. It was like, beep, and I'm back. Just as we were saying, Edmonton is now linked to every defenseman who's possibly available, including Erik Karlsson.
Including Bobby Orr. They're like exhuming his body.
He's still alive.
Wait, what?
Yeah, he's a Trumper.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I honestly don't see Erik Karlsson going to Edmonton. Like, there's no way they can fit another contract of that size on their team and be even remotely capable of keeping a team together.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
The question being, I think this is a supply side economics problem. That this is San Jose's one chance to get rid of him for the next 18,000 years that he's under contract. It's a really difficult trade to make happen. It's such a difficult trade to make happen. I don't know how you make it happen. Like, what the fuck do you get back for him? If anything, there are some people that are just like, yeah, if you could give Erik Karlsson away for free, make that trade.
Oh man, it sucks that we didn't get anybody back for him. Wait, we just got $45 million back for him. We can sign 2 very good players.
Yeah, for
what we just signed. Well, for what we get 1 good season from Erik Karlsson.
It would be amazing to see him on the Oilers. Like, I also think that's the other thing that everyone is talking about, is just wanting to will this to happen, to get an Erik Karlsson next to a Connor McDavid. Like, this kind of
Connor McDavid's going to play defense. He's become a much more responsible forward in his own end.
Leon's going to play defense. Well, I mean, okay, that's another thing, is who doesn't play defense for Edmonton is probably Tyson Barrie. Like, they got to get rid of him if they're going to pick up Karlsson, and Barry's been pretty good. You know, is there
Darnell? If they got Erik Karlsson, Darnell Nurse wouldn't even play on the power play, and you're paying him $9.25 million a year.
Yeah, okay, that's funny.
That's like really funny.
But also, his contract was aged like milk the second that it was signed.
Yeah,
so.
Milk in a bottle in the sun on a blacktop in Qatar. Like,
that sucks, because like, I like him as a player, and good for him to get paid.
Oh, but,
yeah. From a team building perspective.
And a full no move clause.
Yeah, sure. Not a good.
Well, that's because Ken Holland just gives out no move clauses like
they're candy.
We also have learned recently that Tyler Bertuzzi is reportedly being shopped.
Which is not.
It's not surprising,
because he's kind of been like low-key shopped for a while, right?
It's not surprising because of where he's at. He's a UFA. He's been kind of on the trade block for, I don't know, 3 years, supposedly, at least according to the media. But reportedly, there were contract negotiations early in the year that did not go very far. Both sides were kind of not happy with where they were at. And so supposedly he's being shopped around. Honestly, this is the best time to buy Tyler Bertuzzi. I don't like him as a human, but he's had a bad year so far. And he's been hurt so much.
He's a good player. He's got a lot of potential. He's got a lot of tape of that potential, on film.
He is a playoff player.
Oh, absolutely.
He has sandpaper. He has grit. It's already baked into his game. He doesn't have to step it up in the playoffs because he is playoffs.
Elliot Friedman called him a prick.
Yeah.
That. Or sorry, it wasn't Elliot. It was Merrick.
Well, he is a prick. I mean, get vaccinated, you dimbo.
But apparently that presents some difficulty to maybe if
really
you were to go to Canada.
I don't think it really does at this point. I don't think Canada gives a shit. They're just like, you know what? Yeah, whatever. What is COVID? Jonathan Taves, Patrick Kane, just hanging out in Chicago.
Yeah, just being sad that they're not going to New York, apparently.
Jonathan Taves is very much a candidate to be loved by Ken Holland.
Yeah, the other thing is okay, does Pacioretty's injury make them a package deal to Carolina? That could be interesting.
That's a lot of money. Even if you take half of it, it's still $10 million.
Chicago would have to retain, but they're both expiring. So, it's just this year. I kind of keep wondering about Vegas because they have in Mark Stone, a kind of Kucherov, Patrick Kane contract, dude that's out. You got to stash him in LTIR, but he's probably going to come back for the playoffs. The thing is, Patrick Kane is injured and Jonathan Taves is not as effective as he used to be. So I don't think either of them really want to get moved for a 3rd round pick. I'm intrigued to see this happen. I kind of want to see this happen, but I'm not necessarily optimistic that it's going to happen. I think Vegas showing their propensity for buying in the past is going to be a buyer again, just because of this window that they have and the contract situation that they have.
We're gonna move to the juniors here, specifically Canadian juniors for a bit. The first story is a little bit easier to digest, and really just kind of stupid. Zachary L'Heureux, I probably
it could be L'Heureux.
L'Heureux, yeah, sure. I like L'Heureux. It's French for hero. Yeah.
Is he your hero? Are you Dave Grohling this guy?
No, he's my Enrique Iglesias. I can be your hero.
I can be your hero, baby.
He was recently suspended for 10 games by the QMJHL for poking a fan with his stick as he left the ice after a game.
Which is hilarious.
And just so dumb.
Yeah.
And 10 games might sound like a lot, but this is the 9th time he's been suspended in less than 3 seasons spent in the QMJHL.
Wow.
This is your 1st round pick there, Predators. You picked a doozy. I mean, he's not Mitchell Miller, right? So
yeah, right.
Okay.
We're talking
+1.
We're talking minor sins here.
Yeah.
Not major sins.
But he also seems like a stupid douchebag.
I don't know. I mean, tell me about these other suspensions.
I don't know anything about him. The
right,
article was just
as long as none of them are for
racial epithets.
Right. As long as they are for all on ice infractions, and maybe give him a fucking free Ron R test in there. Sure. Do you need to punch a fan once? Fine. As long as you're not filming yourself getting a blowjob without consent or doing something
and then sharing that to your friends.
If it's all suspensions for on ice infractions, I am of the oh, you ate the whole wheel of cheese and you pooped in the fridge? Well, I'm not even mad. I'm impressed. Talk about sandpaper in your veins. Zachary L'Heureux, people's prospect.
People's champ, Zachary L'Heureux. He's just sitting there holding a wheel of brie.
Mm-hmm.
Brie's a French cheese, right?
It is.
All right, yeah. Hey, nailed it. This story not great. Yeah, Martin Leclerc, writing for the CBC in French, so I had to translate it, detailed the outcomes of Daniel Carcillo and Garrett Taylor's lawsuit against the Canadian Hockey League for just the rampant abuse that young players receive when entering the league.
So by outcome, is this like something that came out in Discovery, or? No,
this is the judge here released his findings.
Okay.
And recommended that, and I'll get to that later, but this is like something like a 40-page report that.
Yeah, I mean, the translation of the headline is "Chronic Torture, Rape, and Humiliation at an Arena Near You."
Thankfully, we're in the United States, so it's...
Yeah, that couldn't possibly happen here.
Never. No, we only do that to our gymnasts. This is... we're not going to detail any of the findings in this report of like the specific hazing events. It's fucking awful, though.
And it's awful along the lines of exactly what Daniel Carcillo has been saying for a decade plus now.
Yeah.
Like, this finding just reinforces that hockey culture in and of itself has a rotten core, and it can manifest itself negatively in many different ways. But if you learn about Daniel Carcillo's career and his advocacy and him as a person, you learn about these types of abuses that he suffered and had to endure to get to the NHL, even as sort of a bit player. And it's a testament to him, and he stands as a testament to like, okay, we need to deal with this shit. We as hockey culture need to be responsible for what happens to prospects and need to figure out ways to protect them, because it's ripe for abuse right now.
Yeah. To me, the two biggest takeaways from this are, one, that hockey culture is just a like perverse deterioration of humanity. Like the things detailed in this report are horrific.
Yeah.
If any one of these had happened to me, I would have immediately stopped playing hockey, because it's not worth it. That said, to me, one of the biggest takeaways, and perhaps the worst part of all of this, is that the adults in the room are oftentimes in the room and are oftentimes condoning the behavior.
Yeah, I think that's a constant in, what we've seen from the Blackhawks, what we've seen from, all of these scandals in hockey. Is at some point there is somebody with power and responsibility that is not choosing to do their job in terms of shining a light on abuse and calling attention to abuse and preventing abuse.
And just like it's awful in the NHL, and those are adults. Right. And this, because these are kids. Mm-hmm. These are young children. And we've all reacted so viscerally to the Kyle Beach saga. And this isn't to downplay what happened to Kyle Beach in any way, shape, or form. But these victims are, in some cases, 5-6 years younger than Kyle Beach.
Yeah, I think it reinforces that, in fact, just showing, okay, both the perpetrators exist in hockey, but also the culture of silence exists in hockey that allows these types of things to go on, too long in the shadows before then it becomes too risky for a lot of people to bring it to light. And so that's one of the reasons that a lot of these things, only get uncovered years and years afterwards, is because, people have their asses attached to these stories and these outcomes and also their careers, and well, they choose their career and their livelihood over exposing the truth and exposing things that would, bring a measure of justice to what they're doing, but also probably like send people they know to jail.
Yeah, and bring a measure of heat upon them themselves.
Exactly. When did you know? How did you know it? Like, those types of secrets have sunk how many sports programs now? I mean, Penn State, this story will keep playing itself out and like a wildfire until there's some sort of systemic change and some sort of accountability systems in place.
Until adults act like fucking adults.
I mean, yeah. The more we learn about adults is that we learn that, we're children and that high school never ends.
Yeah. Apparently adulthood is just, it's a faux thing. Like,
right.
It's like most of y'all's fur coats. It's faux. It's fake. The judge in this case has actually dismissed the class action lawsuit, which the judge's reasoning is that this will allow individual players to go after the compensation that they are due. But many Canadian legal experts have kind of poo-pooed this effort and said, like, well, you found all of this evidence. Why not just do the lawsuit or proceed with the lawsuit? And so
I think it's part of the definition of a class is that you have like a similar basis, like the Aaron Brockovich, you're all victims of one corporation, but in the same way kind of thing. I think that's more what a class action lawsuit is meant to set up. It's absolutely one of the ways that these types of organizations fight these things is to help break up these lawsuits into individual ones that they can fight as opposed to a class. Like that's a defensive tactic. And the reason that it's being poo-pooed is because, well, the defensive tactic is working. Are there cases thematically within a class? Maybe not, but are they all perpetrated more or less along the same lines and because of the same organizational failures? Yeah. So there's probably more of a class there than not.
This report has cases of abuse at 38 of the 60 teams in the CHL.
Feels right.
As we're learning from hockey culture, especially in Canada, that might feel low.
Yeah,
honestly.
sure. But like, it feels substantive in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's more than half, right? Like that's a lot of fucking teams. And so if hopefully Carcillo and Taylor and all of these other victims who came forward are going to be able to find a way to get whatever measure of justice they can, whether that's financial payments, whether that's, just the knowledge publicly that certain people have done them wrong, whatever that is, whatever.
Yeah, or sanctions against those people.
Yeah, whatever justice looks like to them, that's what we're hoping for. We're not going to sit here and speak as to what justice is for a person when we are not in their shoes. But it's really fucking awful. And I'm really glad that we're going to talk about fun things next.
Ukrainian boys hockey team, 18, 11, and 12-year-olds. 18 of them.
That's a weird age discrepancy for one club hockey team. Right?
Yeah, got 11 and 12-year-olds.
That was how,
and the 18-year-olds are on that so they can buy booze.
That's how you stacked like 14 and under roster is you had the kid that was me who had the super late birthday and so somehow got away with playing in 14 and under for an extra year.
This shit happened in women's high school basketball. Did you hear about this?
No.
It's like a 22-year-old coach decided to like assume someone's identity and play in a tournament.
Yeah, I did see that.
And I was like, bad form, but that's hilarious.
Yeah. It's like one of the last seasons of Evening Shade where Burt Reynolds gets his star quarterback and they find out that he's like 23.
Yeah. Dominican Republic pitcher.
What was his name? Danny something.
Yeah. Actually, you're 28 years old.
Yeah.
An accountant.
Where's his birth certificate? Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Apart from the jokes about this, it's pretty awesome. Ukraine, obviously in the throes of a war that never should have fucking happened, has the ability to send hockey players to Canada to play a game. And like, I don't know, it's symbolic, but one of those things where like, yes, it's symbolic, but the importance can't be outsized, right? I just watched with my mom the movie about the Syrian swimmers in the Olympics. Yeah, the movie's just called The Swimmers. And sports has the ability to bring us together in times of conflict. And this is one of those things where it's like, all right, these handful of kids got to have maybe one of the more normal hockey tournaments of the last 5-6 years for them since, their country has been invaded. When did the Donbass first get invaded? Was it 2014? That's 8 years. It's 9 years now. They see conflict in their country. That's no doubt affected their hockey playing. That they can put a team together and get over to Canada is very cool. And, I'm very pro-Ukraine in this conflict. I feel badly for what has happened to the Russian hockey players because I feel like it's generally not something that they condoned. So, a lot of people give Ovechkin shit and other Russian hockey players shit for being too close to power for their own good. But
Ovechkin especially has put himself in that position.
Sure, but he put himself in that position before there was an invasion on the table. And yes, while Putin was poisoning every opponent he could find. Sure.
Yeah, and then eventually he ran out of opponents. He's like, well, I really like poisoning people, so I think I'm just going to keep it up.
He hasn't gotten to Panarin yet.
That was actually why I traded Panarin in fantasy. And then I
too much of a liability.
Then I picked up Kaprizov. Whoops.
Yeah.
That was the big reason I traded Svechnikov, is I had too many Russians on my team.
So here you are playing czarist politics with your fantasy hockey team.
Yeah.
Which one of these forwards is least likely to end up shot in an underground bunker?
We think about these Ukrainian kids and the fact that we have to talk with reverence and awe in the fact that they were able to make a hockey tournament. And that's all because of the failure of officials to make the right decisions and, not invade Ukraine. There's also the failure of former NHL officials, Tim Peel. And this is happening close to home as well.
Yeah. So Paul Stewart, who is a U.S. born member of the Hockey Hall of Fame, one of the few, the proud, the Americans.
Are we proud?
Of the amount of Americans in the Hockey Hall of Fame, yeah, we can be proud. I think if I'm an American in the Hockey Hall of Fame, I'm proud of that accomplishment. Yeah. That's what I'm trying to say.
It's like you, Pat LaFontaine, and Smoke, Ninja Dust.
Madonna and probably Patrick Kane soon. But he's the only American to be both a player and a ref in the NHL, in the Hockey Hall of Fame. And the first American to ref 1,000 NHL games. And he relays to us some pretty awful stories, some allegations, reports that were handed to him in a position of leadership around officials, levies some pretty serious allegations of what I would consider abusive officials. In this case, 2 incidents relate to him, one involving officials that were like high school aged, one involving officials that were college aged. And the kids that were officiating, high school aged, officiating other high schoolers, were apparently berated by, only until now named in proxy, mostly, the former kind of decorated NHL ref that, thanks to a hot mic, was cast asunder, shall we say. He berated these referees after a game as a parent, which is like, if there's one reason that referees quit, that's it.
It's being berated by other refs.
Yeah, I mean, other refs, there are other refs that will give you constructive criticism. There are other refs that will give you not constructive criticism. So detailed in Paul's narratives on his blog and these reports that he's read are pretty serious allegations of abuse by former NHL referee and also a current NHL coach while coaching, spectating, advising, whatever you want to call it, with their kids. The former NHL official, whose name rhymes with Shim Heel.
It's Tim Peel.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to deduce that it is him from the reports, from what is said. And it's pretty easy to deduce that it's him from like knowing the kind of official he was and the things he said and the things that he was caught on a hot mic saying. And so what he's accused of doing is like barricading a couple of high school referees in the ref room while he berates them verbally. And one has a sense that if it was any other parent, if it was any other person involved with these hockey teams, like, they would be persona non grata. They would be cut, lifetime ban. Well, because of his position, because of his ability to say what he said to these players, including, I'm quoting the players, "Do you know who I am?" Which seems to be a through line in all of these types of situations.
You're the guy who fucked up.
Yeah, you're the guy who got caught saying the quiet part out loud. Like, you're the Republican that talked about defunding voting. Because of his position as a former NHL referee, he received a 30-day suspension from youth hockey coaching, even though he's not a coach. He received a 2-year ban from entering officials' dressing rooms for any reason.
Why does that need to be a ban?
Yeah, it was like that's not a fucking...
You're not supposed to do that.
And, I mean, if you are him up until this point, sure, why not? If you have a interest in mentorship, in making an appearance, growing the game, blah, blah, blah. Like,
I don't want to hear about anybody in hockey doing any mentoring until we get all this bullshit eradicated from the game.
Okay. Well, if any other hockey
besides
referee,
Wayne Simmons, he can do all the mentoring he wants.
Okay. if Wes McCauley wants to go in and talk to some refs, he's right. He's going to be given the latitude to do so. And he's going to talk to those refs very slowly, but intently about making calls in a very theatrical fashion. As opposed to this fucking douchebag who goes and berates kids for calls they made in his kids' game. Like, this just, it's another hockey culture thing in that we are willing to, in many cases, overlook the sins of our fathers and how people that are ostensibly above us are fundamentally dysfunctioning because they've, quote unquote, earned something. Like, Tim Peel was made to retire in a hurry under extreme duress because it may have not been terribly fair to him.
Because he showed his whole ass.
Did he? I mean, what he was accused of saying, what he said.
I was going to say.
What he said.
We all heard it.
Sorry. What he said and what he was accused of doing, according to what he said, is something that every hockey player knows, that every official does, and every hockey rink on the planet Earth.
That's why I'm
which
saying.
is called game management.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's kind of.
But that's why I'm saying he showed his whole ass, because like before you only get like side ass or like partial ass because it's happening.
Maybe some underbutt.
Yeah. You know it's happening. Oh, underbutt, right?
Yeah, like spring in Portland. You know it's happening when the underbutt and the underboob come out.
But he was like, you know what? I'm going to spread this for you. Like, look at my chocolate starfish.
And my hot dog
Taste
flavored
my
water.
Hot dog flavored water. Yeah, because it's absolutely like he's the one who showed his whole ass, and now every other official is like, well, fuck.
Well, and you know that if he wasn't the personality that he was, somebody probably would have gone to bat for him in ways that they didn't.
Yeah.
He was not an uncontroversial ref before this.
They're like, wait, we can get rid of Tim Peel?
Yeah.
All right.
Like, when it was his nuts that a puck went in off of behind Roberto Luongo, our favorite Italian businessman, everybody cheered. So, like, you know,
it was like, wait, is he hurt? Yeah. All right.
So, nonetheless, after this type of conduct, this heretofore unnamed referee is appealing this decision to the state authority. Because, yeah, when people act badly, they apparently know no shame and can't just take a veritable slap on the wrist. They need to escape consequences completely, which is...
Because I'm a big, strong man and I'm important.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That is exactly what I'm getting at. It's like, okay, no, I need to have the power to completely escape these allegations. Like, if this guy were to come out and say, like, I misbehaved and I am sorry for treating these refs this way, like, I shouldn't have done this, I would have a whole lot more respect than if they were to say, no, I shouldn't be suspended for acting like this because do you know who I am? Like, that's the recurring bullshit theme here is this, you know, NHL does not mean you are the end all and be all of hockey. There's a whole lot of hockey that goes on that has nothing to do with the NHL, and for a good fucking reason. And so, you know, we need to approach sports with less of a thought that elite means right. Might does not necessarily mean right? So, just because, and that's one of the underlying issues that we always have in these scandals when they come back and forth is like this sort of assumption that, oh, you're a professional blankety blank. You know everything. And that's never true. Whether it's, people, the adults running the QMJHL or the supposed adults running the Portland Thorns and Timbers, or, the adults in the room that allowed the Kyle Beach scandal to happen. It's this sort of elite attitude that, oh, everyone else is better off not knowing the truth. That always gets people in trouble.
You made a good point there about the elites not always knowing everything and not knowing what to do. Well, Travis Hamonic is an NHL player, and he apparently doesn't know that you shouldn't cross-check Zach Hyman into your own goalie.
Yeah, that was a very dumb play.
Yeah, amongst the dumber I've seen in recent memory.
Like, if you want to injure your goalie, let's just cross-check a defender immediately at them.
If you want to injure your goalie, just do it yourself. Like, Christ. So, Travis Hamonic in a game against Edmonton earlier this week or late last week, there's a scrum in front of the net. And, during those scrums, you generally have, there's a couple cross checks, a couple of blows here and there to kind of assert your position in that scrum and make sure that, the puck doesn't go in your net or you get the puck in their net.
Some face washing and some mean mugging.
Yeah. And some balls on the chin. Never mind. That's the shower. But so, Travis Hamonic, third pairing defenseman for the Ottawa Senators, cross-checked Zach Hyman right on top of Anton Forsberg. And as the melee continues, the puck makes its way to Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and the net's wide open, which in a scrum is usually not how this works. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins puts the puck away, 6-3 lead. Edmonton ends up going on to win. The reason the net's wide open is because Anton Forsberg tore both of his MCLs. He's down in a vulnerable position. Zach Hyman, through no fault of his own, lands on top of him. And apparently, that was the force of somebody just taking a serrated knife to the back of Anton Forsberg's knees, because they're done for the season.
Yeah, he kind of got done by the mob a little bit, didn't he? Curious to me that there's lots of hot, sweaty bodies, some tearing of some things, and it's not a Hyman. I mean, Zach Hyman.
The Hyman didn't tear.
One of the worst things that you can do as a defenseman is not necessarily truck your own goalie or make an own goal. It's to make that offensive player truck your goalie. That's, if there's a thing that you can't penalize that injures goalies, it's that. It's I can't. Yeah, it was your own defenseman, dude, that made this other guy fly into you. What am I gonna do about that? And so
puts refs in awkward positions,
for sure,
badgering other referees in their own referee room.
Well, and it's you always catch shit from the goalie, and the goalie's well,
where's the
protect
fucking call?
Me? And it's that was your own dude that punted this other guy into you.
If a goalie said that to me, and this is why I'm not a ref, I'd be okay, and then I'd call penalty on his defender. Just piss him off even more. Take that, Dave.
Not entirely unheard of.
Yeah.
But yeah, the amount of shit that goalies have to deal with is enormous. It sucks that this happened, and Anton Forsberg, who was having a pretty good season up to this point, and probably looking like the future of that Ottawa Senators goal crease, or at least a part of it, has to deal with
another injury.
Yeah, right.
and a doozy of an injury for a goaltender.
The good news is that MCLs aren't ACLs.
Yes.
They heal faster.
Yeah, I saw a report that he might not be done for the season. I was like, man, just shut him down.
Right. You have nothing to play for. You are nowhere near the playoffs, Ottawa. You need to sell Alex DeBrincat and shut some people down.
Ottawa's not selling. They're going to re-sign him.
Which, I mean, okay. Yeah, good player, but sell his ass right now. Like, I don't know. Imagine Alex DeBrincat on Vegas.
The last thing we're going to talk about today is a bit of a happy story that is preceded by a sad story, and that is the year that is Jakub Vrana.
It could be a human interest film.
We might have a redemption. I think we've got a redemption arc coming here.
Oh, we've had a redemption arc queued up from the beginning.
So
I mean, he was already sort of like a redemption player.
Yes,
and then now he's got like a full on like Lifetime movie level of arc going.
So Jakub Vrana has not had a great year. He played in the first 2 games of the season. Played well, had a goal and assist, and then disappeared. And he disappeared because he went into the NHL/NHLPA player assistance program. And we are not going to speculate at all what that was about, because it's unfair to Jakub. If he wants to tell people, then he can. He went away from the team for several months, came back for about a week, and then the Red Wings sent him down to Grand Rapids for a conditioning stint. And that went really poorly for a bit, and the Red Wings waived him on January 3rd. Dude who, by the numbers, if he played enough, would be one of the more prolific scorers in the NHL. Like, his goals per 60 is like something like 5th or 6th highest in the league over the last 5 years.
Yeah, he's crazy productive when he can stay on the ice.
He's got one of the best releases I've ever seen, and like, we're all about to see Connor Bedard's release in the NHL, which is just fucking stupid. But Vrana's is way up there, one of the best I've ever seen. And
he's a goal-scoring artiste.
Yeah. And so he got waived, and nobody picked him up. No team that actually needs a Jakub Vrana has $5.25 million in cap space.
Yeah, there was some supposition about some collusion-like activities. Like,
Steve Yzerman doesn't need to collude.
Well, like, nobody was willing to call Steve Yzerman on his bet, basically.
Yeah. He did the same thing with Alex Nedeljkovic like a week later.
Right. Contrast with what happened with Jesperi Kotkaniemi. Like, sometimes your bet gets called relatively infrequently in the NHL. Like, GMs love to pat each other on the back and like, oh yeah, good plan, buddy. Good plan. Yeah. And very, very infrequently you get somebody who's like, I'm going to snipe your Jakub Vrana.
Can you believe if somebody had done that to Steve Yzerman?
He would have
what sort of warlock witch magic he would have possessed. Like, you don't make him stronger. He's terrifying.
How amazing would have been if it was like Chicago, and then like we get that thing back in motion.
I think the hate towards Chicago is pretty universal at this point. So,
sure. I'm not even saying that as like a fan. I'm just like, let's reignite an old rivalry.
Yeah. Why not?
I mean, what Chicago's done with their roster over the last 24 months makes no fucking sense. So I won't even pretend to try and...
Hey, we have the basis of a good young roster and 2 aging stars. I know.
Let's keep the 2 aging stars
and get rid of everybody else.
Yeah, and then sign this deadbeat defenseman as our 1D.
Woo! Anyways, so Vrana then, after being waived and not claimed, went on a bit of a tear.
A bit.
He had a bit.
A lot of a tear.
He's been playing really great. Him and Elmer Soderblom have really had a great time together down there in Grand Rapids. And there was all this talk and chatter about like, oh, when are the Wings going to call him up? When are the Wings going to call him up? To the point where I have acquired and waived Jakub Vrana like 6 times in the last 2 months. Just waiting for the time when he gets called up.
Waiting for Vrana?
He actually might be this year's champion of most times dropped and reactivated. Anyways.
Mr. Godot Vrana.
So he, as of today or as of yesterday, was called back up to the Red Wings. They're on a West Coast road trip. He didn't play tonight against Edmonton, but he's back with the team. There was an article in The Athletic by Max Bultman the other day talking about where Vrana is at, and Vrana is like, there have been no discussions, there's been no talk, there's been nothing. I'm just here playing hockey, rediscovering my joy and, rediscovering my form. And then like 3 days later, he gets called back up. And so Max Bultman is a champion of the people for helping this wonderful person, Jakub Vrana, get called back up to the Red Wings. But on the other, like, the odyssey that has been Jakub Vrana's year, it needs to have a happy ending.
Yeah, it sort of looks like they're trending towards that. I mean,
yeah, he's not going to play tonight. They play Calgary in like 3 days or I think Saturday or something like that. Hopefully he's in the lineup that night. And I've always liked Jakub Vrana as a player, as a forward who doesn't try that hard on defense. He's always been like one of my favorites. I get his vibe. I'm openly rooting for Mr. Vrana to find his way back into the NHL, and he's undeniably talented. And so the fact that he is back up where he rightfully belongs and honestly has earned the call up is great to see. And so I just wanted to say, as a Red Wings fan, as a Jakub Vrana fan, this is fucking rad and happy to see it. And with that, our time here has come to an end. We are perplexed as to why you are listening to us, but thank you just the same. Look at us putting an episode out 1 week after we put out another episode.
I know. Look at us go.
I'm worried about us, actually. Like, this is too much work.
Our sicko score is going up, yes.
Yeah. Our Corsi, however, in the toilet. Thank you so much for listening to us. We are just still, 2 years in, flabbergasted that people take time out of their lives to throw us on while they're like cutting the lawn or cooking dinner or pretending to care about their kids, like whatever it is you're doing while listening to us. Thank you so much for continuing to listen. And
it seems like maybe a stretch to ask you for more time than you're already taking, but we would love to hear from you. So if you want to find us and contact us on the interwebs, we are on those Bill Gates interweb thingies at handsomehockey.com, Handsome Hockey Podcast on Instagram, at Handsome Hockey on Twitter, and at the Handsome Hockey Pod at gmail.com, or at our Facebook page, Handsome Hockey.
And before Evan can say it, we're never getting a TikTok.
Too bad. I think we already have one.
You son of a bitch.
Yeah, but like there's alcohol, so I'm not sure if I actually made it or not.
Oh. You maybe not son of a bitch.
I'm just going to make it a mystery now.
Oh, okay. Well, if it's out there, I don't know about it.
I have good ideas for reels and actual like videos, but the question is, do I have fucking time to film them?
No. We're busy.
Someday soon.
Someday. Speaking of Sunday, this episode will be out before then, hopefully. Thank you, everybody, for listening and for listening to us blather on about stuff that we think is important and hopefully you think is important too. Stay handsome, everybody.
Restez beau, tout le monde.